Hello everyone, and welcome to Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting series on what if Naruto was son of wild animal god. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Rays of sunlight washed over pure white sheets and walls. A young boy tried to hide from the evil light, using the pillow to protect his eyes. But the relentless rays had awoken the boy and he began to stir and finally decided to sit up in the bed. The pillow teetered on his head before sliding down his back. The boy looked around himself in a confused daze. A small strand of his golden hair landed on his left eye. Closing his attacked eye, he used the other one to glare at the lock of hair, and suddenly he remembered what he was doing before he passed out. Sasuke. The boy's blue eyes searched frantically around his surroundings until he realized that he was in the Konoha hospital. He looked at the wall directly in front of him and did his best to think about what had happened. The last thing he remembered was fighting his best friend and rival. He even called him his brother, Sasuke. He clearly recalled his last moment with Sasuke. The dreaded flashback. His body felt like it was burning. It felt like flames were slowly eating away at his bones and flesh, immobilizing his movements, causing his left arm to be completely useless. He stood up and watched his friend's movements carefully. They both prepared their final attack, to decide the victor. Leaping at one another, they raised their hands, each with its own ball of chakra, and shouted out their attacks. Chidori. Rasengan. In a vortex of mass destruction, Sasuke saw an opening and aimed a direct fatal punch to his best friend's chest. The other, cringing in pain, also saw his opening and rather carefully he planted a scratch on Sasuke's headband. He smiled and thought to himself, "There, Sasuke. You said I wouldn't even land one scratch on your forehead. I showed you, didn't I? Now you'll come back, right?" In that moment both of them saw what could have been, if they only had the courage to face each other sooner. They saw younger versions of themselves linking two of their fingers together in a tight, unbreakable bond of friendship and smiling fondly to one another. End of the dreaded flashback. Ah, Naruto, you're up. The boy looked up into his sensei's face in shock. He hadn't even noticed he had entered the room. Naruto noticed another person at Kakashi's side, and realizing who it was, he looked down in shame. It was Sakura, his and Sasuke's teammate. Naruto had promised her that he'd bring Sasuke back and even swore it on his ninja way, to never go back on his word. But there he was, a loser in a hospital bed. Maybe Sasuke was right. Maybe he really was a dobe. Sakura didn't even look in his direction, and Kakashi, feeling the hatred, she had decided to bring her as far away from Naruto as he could. And so Naruto watched them leave with sorrow-filled eyes. Give up on it, okay, Naruto? Naruto looked up at the window towards the voice, and saw an old man with long white hair tied back in a ponytail and had red streaks running down from his eyes. The man was looking out at the setting sun and then turned his eyes to focus on the blue ones before him. His old age was obvious, but his well-toned body was hard to overlook. Any sane person would think twice before attacking this man, even if they didn't know he was one of the three legendary Sannin. What are you talking about, Ero Sennin? Naruto asked, trying his hardest to master one of his foxy grins. I'm talking about going after Sasuke. It's pretty clear that he decided on his own to go to Orochimaru. He's my friend. If I don't stop him now, then... Naruto looked down and brought his last words to a whisper. Orochimaru will. He will. Kill him. Don't worry about it. Because of the damage the third Hokage did to him, he most likely already transferred his soul to another body. Jiraiya was deeply moved by Naruto's concerns for Sasuke. I did some investigating and found that Orochimaru will have to wait for at least 3 years, until he takes Sasuke's body for his own. During that time I will train you myself. But... oh no. Naruto flinched. There's a catch? I absolutely forbid you to go after him until then. Naruto gawked at Jiraiya's serious face and furious tone. Even then I might decide for you not to go at all. Nani? Do you honestly think you can change his mind? Like I said before, he went on his own free will. I know you won't be able to change his mind because he's exactly like Orochimaru. He craves power. Naruto was about to say or rather yell something when he interrupted. You already know that you're no ordinary kid. The Akatsuki are after the Kyuubi, if they were to ever catch you. I'm not about to let my friend die. No matter what you say, I will bring Sasuke back home. Would a friend try and kill you? Jiraiya studied Naruto's face, but saw nothing other than raw determination. He sighed. If you go after him I won't be able to train you. Hey, like I really care if you train me or not, Ero Sennin. You idiot, I said I won't be able to train you, not that I wouldn't. Naruto cocked his head in complete confusion. If you leave, you're very likely to die. And Anbu watched as Naruto rolled over in his sleep, making it impossible to see his face. The masked ninja sat on the edge of the building directly in front of the hospital and looked more carefully at the boy, but there was no suspicious movements that the Anbu could make out, so he remained perfectly still, as the sun set lower in the sky. Naruto snored loudly and slightly opened his left eye, scanning the dark room. Seeing no one, he closed his eye once again and made more sleep-like movements. It was times like this that Naruto was glad he always put up an act, making it seem like he was horrible at everything he did. True, Naruto wasn't a genius, but he didn't completely stink at everything he did. His specialty was slipping in or out of nearly every place or situation. Naruto grinned. They're not gonna suspect a thing. The Anbu noticed that the genin was starting to stir and wake up. He watched as the ninja sat up in bed and rubbed his eyes. The boy then stretched and got up. At that, another Anbu stood from his spot and disappeared into the building. Naruto finished washing his hands and glanced around the bathroom. Empty. Grinning, Naruto made some hand signs and a shadow clone appeared beside him. The two Narutos nodded to each other and the clone put on a sleepy act as he walked out of the bathroom. The real Naruto waited against the wall, carefully listening. Someone was coming. Feeling his body tensing, Naruto tried to relax. He listened to the footsteps coming closer with every deafening beat of his heart. Naruto could feel his sweat running down his face and his pulse racing. He bit down on his lip. Relax. Naruto took a deep silent breath of air, just as the footsteps came to a halt in front of the door. The door opened and a doctor entered. He used the toilet and continued by heading to the sink. He had just checked his latest patient and was amazed at the remarkable recovery he was making. He had no idea that his patient was actually hanging from the ceiling directly above him. Naruto was doing his best to conceal his presence. He tried to use as little chakra as possible in his feet and fingertips, but found he was also losing his grip. Shit. Go already. Naruto mentally screamed. He pressed his back harder against the ceiling. Naruto was tempted to just beat the guy unconscious right then and there, but knew it would be better to wait. The fight could make some noise and that was the last thing he wanted. Finally the man left. When he was sure no one was around, Naruto made his move. The Anbu in front of the hospital relaxed seeing the genin getting back in bed and glanced over in time to see the other Anbu returning to his spot. There were no signs that the boy was going to. A tour of the Anbu settled in their places for what they knew was going to be a long night. Well, how's he doing? The Anbu waited for the ninja to get a bit closer before he answered him. The laid-back ninja approached him and stopped just behind the Anbu. Kakashi shoved his book in his pocket and looked through the window at Naruto. He hasn't made any means of escaping. That's unlike him. Kakashi feared the worst as he lifted his forehead protector off his left eye. That's a clone. Hurry, go and find Naruto. I'll tell the Hokage. Naruto leapt from tree branch to tree branch, laughing. He was glad no one was near his house or it might have taken a little while to get a change of clothes and weapons. Naruto briefly wondered how long it took for them to realize that he had left. Focusing on his main goal, Naruto scanned his surroundings for any signs that lead him in the right direction, not slowing his pace at all. He finally reached the field and raced through the grass towards the direction of the cave. Not long now until I reached the valley. Naruto heard the sounds of the roaring waterfall drawing closer and closer. A strange feeling came over him. He was returning to the place Sasuke tried to kill him. Naruto furiously shook his head and ignored the feeling. The only thing that mattered now was getting Sasuke back as soon as possible. He wasn't going to let him die. Naruto stopped and walked slowing into the blinding light of the rising sun. He raised his hand over his eyes and tried to focus his gaze. There was a silhouette in the same spot where Sasuke had stood. No, there was two. Who are they? He walked a bit closer to get a better view. It looked like they were wearing cloaks. Naruto's eyes managed to get accustomed to the light and he got a good look at the two across from him. It's those two from before. The tallest of the two men reached for his huge bandaged sword. He had blue skin and gill-like markings underneath his eyes. The other one resembled Sasuke. Naruto couldn't stop looking at his Sharingan eyes, until he heard one of them speak. "Oh, you remembered us?" The man smiled, baring his sharp teeth, looking very much like a shark. Naruto clenched his hands in frustration. This can't be good. Not going to get away from us this time, brat. I can't fight them. Naruto took a step back, but he suddenly sensed something and quickly looked over his shoulder. Something was coming out of the ground. He watched in horror as a plant-like man emerged and stood behind him, wearing the same black jacket as the other two. Naruto was about to back away from him, but was soon encircled Kisame and Itachi. Naruto put his hands together and was about to call on the Kyuubi for some chakra, but Kisame anticipated his actions and swung his sword. Naruto leapt away just in time, but was attached by Itachi and sent soaring down the statue. He saw his chance and summoned the red chakra. As he was doing so, he could see the 3 Akatsuki members coming down after him. Naruto felt the demon power engulfing him. He veered away from them but was met with Kisame's sword and felt all his chakra seeping away from him, along with a searing pain. Naruto landed on the water and began to sink until he felt himself being lifted up. He opened his eyes and saw Itachi's Sharingan change, and was suddenly in a dark dimension. Naruto glanced around in fear and confusion. He looked down only to find himself tied up in chains. You are about to experience the power of the Mangenkyu firsthand. Naruto felt a cold shiver run up his spine at what he had heard. He didn't know if it was the words, the voice, or the combination of the two that scared him. He looked to see Itachi headed in his direction, a long, thin sword in hand, and feared was in store for him. A young man could be seen walking casually down a path bordered with trees. The cool wind blew through his black hair and ruffled the white shirt slung over his shoulders. The man tilted his head back and let the hot sun wash over his ivory skin, but soon the trees became so dense that the branches blocked out the sun, and he returned his eyes on the trail he was on. The wind grew a little stronger and now started to carry green leaves on its current. A large wooden gate came into view and he started to feel a little nervous. He ran away from his home 3 years ago. He started to wonder if they would even listen to what he has to say, let alone accepting him back as one of their own. He swallowed back his fear, and stepped into clear view of the guards. Lord Hokage. A blonde woman lifted her head in a sleepy daze, a piece of paper sticking to the side of her face. She noticed the man standing in the doorway of her office. Interlacing her fingers, she glared at the ninja, who had very rudely interrupted her work. "What is it?" The ninja was slightly intimidated by her quiet, irritated tone, but he walked up to her desk all the same. When he was in front of her, he bowed and told her the situation. "Sasuke has returned. He is standing just outside of the gates." The ninja looked up, after hearing no response, and saw that the women looked very shocked. He stood upright, feeling very worried about the Hokage's reaction, thinking that she saw Sasuke as being a very big problem. Tsunade caught his worried glance and returned to her normal expression. "Send Kakashi and 5 Anbu to escort Sasuke to my office. I would also like to have a few Anbu on standby around this building. We can't be too cautious." "Yes, Lord Hokage." Tsunade let out a heavy sigh the second he had left and brought her hands to massage her temples. She then just realized the paper sticking to the side of her face and ripped it off. Sasuke stood waiting at the gates. He was thinking about Naruto. What's he going to do when he sees me? I tried to kill him. I was gone for 3 years. I tried to kill him. It's not like he's going to leap into my arms the second he sees me and scream. "Sasuke. Long time no see. I've missed you." If he did, I would have to take him home and hug him and kiss him and… What am I thinking? He probably hates me. Stupid Dobi. He didn't even notice all of those hints I gave him. I wonder if he still likes Sakura. "Sasuke." The said ninja looked up at the sound of a familiar voice, and was greeted with the sight of Kakashi. Sasuke nodded in response. Kakashi looked back and said something. Sasuke assumed he asked someone to let him in, because the gates started to open. Out of respect, Sasuke decided to wait until the gates were completely open until he began to enter the village he had left years ago. "You trained under a criminal who is trying to eliminate this place." Nod. "Your only reason was to get stronger." Nod. "You really did try to kill Naruto." Nod. "And now you're saying you want to come back? After all that?" Nod. Tsunade stared at him for a good 5 minutes before closing her eyes and considering everything that was going on. "Sasuke, despite his appearance, was very nervous. He was also surprised that nothing really bad had happened yet, other than the large commotion the village had made on Sasuke's entry. Sakura made most of the mess. Sasuke was shocked with all the changes. Although no one could tell he was, everyone else was not only shocked, but also very happy to see Sasuke. But he hadn't seen Naruto yet. Sasuke made the decision that even if Tsunade didn't allow him to stay, he was still going to see Naruto. Even if they imprison him, he'll escape. Even if they attack him, he'll retreat and sneak back. Even if they kill him. Alright. Sasuke, who was looking out the window, looked at the Hokage. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. I get to stay here. For good. Not behind bars? That's a relief. Now I get to see Naruto as much as I want. Naruto. Here I come. But he might hate me after everything I've done. Damn it. But, Sasuke blinked and looked back at Tsunade. There's a catch? You are not permitted to go on missions for 2 months. Sasuke's mind. No big deal. And there will be Anbu watching Yuke's mind. That'll make going to the bathroom and taking baths uncomfortable. Kakashi will train you into Chunin. Sasuke's mind. That'll be interesting. And you will be doing community service until you start missions. Sasuke's mind. There goes my pride. Although Sasuke had the sudden urge to destroy the Hokage's desk and all of her paperwork with it, he nodded. If that's what it took to be a citizen of Konohagakure once again, then he would suffer through all of what the Hokage had planned for him. He wanted desperately for things to be at least close to the way they were. He also wanted to confess to Naruto. Naruto. All the time Sasuke had spent training for Orochimaru, Naruto was always on his mind. He made the decision to tell Naruto when he got back. He knew Naruto might very well turn him down, but he wouldn't give up. Naruto was always on his mind, ever since the day he first saw him, but it became even more so when Sasuke had left. He missed him. But Sasuke knew that if he didn't kill Itachi, his nightmares would never go away and he would always be tormented. Not only did he want to avenge his clan's death, but he also wanted to get as close to Naruto as he could. If something else was constantly bugging him, he wouldn't be able to completely enjoy being with Naruto. He would be too restless. Kakashi was leading Sasuke out of the building. He had told Sasuke to enjoy the rest of the day and make his house livable again. Cleaning Sasuke's house would take all day, even if he was using his ninja skills, it was just too big. He would do that after he saw Naruto. Kakashi. The Junin turned around and looked at his student. You know that's the first word you have said since you got here? I'm honored that it so happened to be my name. Is Naruto on a mission? Kakashi looked down at his feet. Well, Sasuke. You see, after you left, Naruto went missing. What? After your match with Naruto, I brought him to the hospital, but then he left that very same night. I managed to trace him all the way back to the Valley of the End, but... Kakashi looked back to meet Sasuke's eyes, but he had no sign of any emotion. Sasuke turned away from him without saying a word and headed straight for Naruto's house. Today was the day that he would finally go on his first mission since he came back home. After all those days of humiliating community service work, shockingly hard training, and surviving Anbu stalkers, Sasuke was at long last given his mission. He glanced at his temporary teammates that were also assigned to the mission. Kiba was stroking Akamaru's head, apparently bored from the lecture. Shikamaru was listening to the Hokage's instructions with very little interest. Rock Lee on the other hand was listening to Tsunade very enthusiastically, giving her his full attention. Sasuke recalled them all when they were still genins, but since then they had grown. Especially the dog, who was now big enough to carry at least 2 ninjas. Not only did they change in appearance, but their skills had also improved tremendously. He had the privilege to battle each of them and was surprised to find it very exhausting, and they were only simple sparring matches. But even though so many things have changed, Sasuke noticed that their personalities were hardly different from before. All right. Tsunade spoke, causing Sasuke to look back at her. He realized she looked a little worried about something, and seemed to be choosing her words very carefully. These criminals aren't like any you have faced before. That is why you are only going to spy on them during this mission. Nothing more. Got it? Why such strict demands? Kiba smirked at the Hokage, baring his dog-like fangs. If something happens, we'll have to defend ourselves, right? No. I absolutely forbid that. Tsunade slammed her hands on the desk, rather lightly for her, but still causing a slight tremor, and got to her feet, glaring at them. The only exception is if there are no other ways of escaping. If you have the chance to get away, then take it. She seemed to be growing more anxious. Lord Hokage. Rock Lee raised his hand. Please forgive me, but why are these criminals so dangerous? Tsunade let out a deep sigh, and returned to sitting in her chair. Even though I sincerely hope the information I have received is wrong, I better tell you what you are all up against. She examined each of their expressions, particularly Sasuke's, and then continued. The man who somehow managed to escape and had requested this mission could not describe any of the criminals' features, except the clothes they were wearing. Two of them were wearing black robes with red clouds on them, and the other one was wearing a black kimono with a single red cloud on the back. He was too traumatized to recall anything else. Man, what a drag. Tsunade looked very carefully at Sasuke's face, but was unnerved at reading nothing from his emotionless features. She only hoped he wasn't about to do anything rash, although deep down she knew that was far too much to ask for. Sasuke's recovered loyalty toward the village was being tested, and she hoped he was going to pass. The four-man team raced through the trees, and were nearing their destination. They had been traveling for 6 days and were beginning to feel a little on edge. Although Shikamaru had made sure that they were all well rested, Sasuke could not relax. Black robes. Red clouds. They are no doubt members of the Akatsuki. Itachi. Bastard. I wish there was a more accurate word to describe how I feel. Despise just doesn't seem bad enough. Naruto. Wait, what? No, I'm supposed to be thinking about how much I hate Itachi. Stupid Dobi, always butting in on everything. I'm not even safe from him in my mind. Sasuke wasn't about to admit it to anyone, but nothing felt right without Naruto. The village was way too quiet. He had went to Naruto's house the day he returned, praying against all odds that Naruto had just set up the whole missing thing, and was in his home laughing with his mouth full of ramen. Sasuke, not getting any answer from his constant knocking, had entered only to find Naruto's house unused and covered in dust. He tried to tell himself that Naruto was just a slob and never bothered to clean his place, so he ended up cleaning the idiot's house and hoped that Naruto might say he owed him one. Sasuke was really looking forward to seeing Naruto pouting when he told him that cleaning was now on the list of things that he was better at than him. Sasuke visited Naruto's house every day. In secret, of course, but the Dobi was never home. All right, everyone, there it is. Sasuke and the others stopped and looked at the huge walls surrounding the village. It was in the middle of a huge open field that spread at least 10 kilometers all the way around. The lush green grass was long enough to give the ninjas cover even while standing. The village hidden in the grass was given its name for a reason. Hey, guys. Everyone turned to look at Kiba. Akamaru and I smell blood. Lots of blood. The gates are all busted. I'll take Sasuke with me. We'll take cover under the debris and have a look around. Come when I give the signal. Yosh. Once the two of them got there and hid in the rubble, Sasuke looked around with his Sharingan. Mangled corpses were scattered all over, their bodies so badly mutilated that it could only be seen as a bloody mound of flesh. There was no signs of life anywhere. Sasuke nodded to Shikamaru. After he gave the signal, the other two were with them in a matter of seconds. Okay. Kiba, can you and Akamaru smell any relatively new human scents? All we smell is blood. There's so much it's blocking out all the other smells. What a drag. All right. We'll span out and look around, but we have to remain within each other's sight and hearing range. Let's go. Not even 2 minutes in the search, the team spotted 3 figures in the middle up a very large circle of lifeless ninjas. The bodies had been destroyed in a very gruesome manner. Limbs ripped or severed, some were even twisted or cut right in two. Sasuke recognized one of the 3 figures immediately, Itachi. He also remembered seeing the man that was the tallest of the 3 when he fought with Itachi in the hotel. The other one was wearing a black kimono with a single red cloud. Sasuke, with his Sharingan activated, looked more closely at the other one. The ninja was covered in a lot of blood and was turned so only their backside was visible. It was near impossible to make anything out. Sasuke was sure the other person had short hair, but couldn't make out the color of it. Hey, Itachi. It looks like your pet sniffed out some visitors. The man swung his large sword and a sudden gust of wind blew away the team's cover and they found themselves absolutely exposed. They were stunned and didn't know what to do, and were at their enemy's mercy. You know, Itachi, that little pet of yours is having all the fun. Don't you think I should at least get to kill these guys? I think not, Kisame. This is merely training for him. Itachi glanced over at Sasuke, and because of his eyes he could see Sasuke slightly tensing. You are too late, little brother. You have no hope in defeating me now. He looked at the other Akatsuki member. Don't be so rude. Turn around and greet our visitors, Naruto. The four shinobis, and a nin dog, were rooted to the spot, too shocked to move. They watched as Naruto got to his feet and turned around to face them. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Their fellow comrade had changed to a fearsome degree. Naruto flicked off the blood coating his red, busy tail and raised his head. His eyes had changed from their beautiful blue to a deep crimson red, and looked as though the very life had been drained from them. The whisker marks on his face were thicker and longer. Naruto's hair was starting to become visible as the blood dripped off it. The golden color had now changed to a fiery red. Fox-like ears hung on the side of his head. Now, Naruto, why don't you play with your old friends? Itachi seemed to ask Naruto in a mocking tone. Naruto lifted a bloody hand and flexed his fingers, baring his claws, and began to approach the ones he once called friends. His eyes showed no recognition towards them, only the need to kill. Shikamaru was the first to come out of his state of shock. Everyone, move. Go. Now. With the jolt of reality, they made their retreat, running away as fast as they could. They dared not even to look behind them, at Naruto steadily gaining on them. Once they entered the trees, Sasuke leapt closer to Shikamaru. That can't be Naruto. Shikamaru ignored him and continued to run. He looked over his shoulder and wasn't surprised to see Naruto closing in on them. He knew that if Naruto was now a member of the Akatsuki, there was no doubt that he was transformed into bloodthirsty killer. Go on without me. I'll try to slow him down. Shikamaru, are you crazy? Kiba asked in disbelief. He'll kill you. He'll kill all of us if he catches up. Now go. Shikamaru stopped on a large branch and turned. The second he did, he saw Naruto diving right at him, his clawed hand aimed at his head. Shikamaru ducked just in time and leapt to another branch. He turned around and was horrified to see that Naruto had cut the tree in half. If that had connected, I would be dead right on the spot. This is such a drag. Naruto slowly turned to face him and attacked. Shikamaru made hand signs and his shadow suddenly jerked to life and darted to Naruto's. Naruto stopped in his tracks. Shadow Possession Jutsu, a success. Naruto simply blinked. He then started to walk forward. To Shikamaru's stunned amazement, he also began to walk. How is this possible? I made the jutsu, but he's the one controlling my movements. Naruto lifted his hand and Shikamaru was forced to mimic his actions. Damn it. Naruto aimed his attack and with a horrifying speed one that Shikamaru knew he couldn't match drove his hand through Shikamaru's chest. Shikamaru coughed out blood and felt his body weaken. His vision went black. Shikamaru. Naruto glanced over his shoulder at the sound of angry cries, and saw the rest of the ninjas returning. He removed his hand and faced his new opponents. Rock Lee leapt over Naruto and grabbed Shikamaru. Naruto was about to attack, when Kiba and Akamaru aimed their own attack on him. Naruto veered away from their Gatsuga and watched them as they retreated once more. Sasuke looked over his shoulder at Naruto. He was overcome with the deep feeling of guilt and sadness. Sasuke blamed Itachi, but he also knew that he was at fault as well. Damn! How could I have let this happen? Kiba also looked over at Naruto and noticed he wasn't moving. He's not coming. Maybe this is our chance to treat Shikamaru? This is a bad situation. Rock Lee's voice was edged with worry. We must treat Shikamaru as best as we can, but Naruto could catch us very easily. I don't really want to ask this, but are we even sure if he's alive? The silence was more than enough to answer Kiba's question. None of them were certain if their leader was as alright as they hoped him to be, and since none of them were experienced with very much medical skills, they had no idea how to help Shikamaru. We should risk it, and at least bandage him. What do you guys think? Rock Lee looked back at his other teammates, and they nodded their approval. Kiba and Akamaru were keeping watch as Shikamaru was being bandaged. Sasuke, who was holding Shikamaru, spoke to Rock Lee. Go. We'll catch up. Rock Lee looked up from his work. Everyone knew that when he took off his weights, Rock Lee was incredibly fast. The taijutsu ninja was more than a little uncomfortable about leaving the rest of his team behind. Kiba and Sasuke sensed it right away. "Look, you have to make it to the village. You can get help," Akamaru barked in agreement with Kiba. Rock Lee nodded his head. Wakarimasite. After removing his weights, he carefully picked up Shikamaru and disappeared through the trees. Akamaru suddenly barked and leapt at his owner. Kiba fell on his side and looked up at his companion in confusion, but instead he saw Akamaru being attacked and sent flying in a yelp of pain. He landed a great distance away, covered in blood. Kiba looked at the attacker and saw Naruto, also covered in blood. Akamaru's blood. Anger boiled inside him. "Damn you!" Kiba charged Naruto in a fit of rage. He was going to make him pay for hurting Akamaru. Kiba was furious and not thinking straight. He didn't care that he might be getting himself killed. Naruto was watching him from the corner of his eye, and readied himself to strike. Sasuke leapt in the way and grabbed Kiba. Staying to fight was a death sentence. Kiba was too enraged to understand that, so Sasuke had to restrain him. Sasuke made for another retreat. Despite his injury, Akamaru managed to keep up. Nobody in the team even liked the idea of always running away, but that was the order given to them from their Hokage and they had to follow it. Not only that, but Sasuke wasn't too eager to fight against Naruto a second time. "This is bad. Really bad," Kiba spoke, after Akamaru had calmed him down. "Even if we run all the way back to the village, it'll still take us at least 3 days. Naruto could kill us during that time." Sasuke looked behind him, but didn't see any signs of them being followed. "We're not being followed. We're being hunted." Sasuke was beginning to feel weak from overusing his Sharingan. They needed to rest as soon as they could, but that was near impossible, since Naruto would attack them every time they did. "Naruto. What exactly happened to you? What did they do to make you like this?" They were in a very tight spot and they couldn't see any hope of surviving. Even if Rock Lee did make it back to the village in time, help wouldn't arrive until it was too late. They had used all of their bandages for Shikamaru, so there was none left to treat Akamaru's deep wounds. Not only did it slow him down, but his blood led a trail straight to them. He couldn't hide. Naruto stayed in the same spot long after the two ninjas and Nindog retreated. He felt a strange feeling overtaking him. He hadn't felt this way for a long time, and the last time his master had said the feeling was bad, so Naruto was punished. He shivered. Bad. Bad. Feelings are bad. Naruto looked in the direction his prey had went. His master ordered him to play with them, so he was, but whenever he did that strange sensation would come back. Whenever he attacked them, the sensations would affect him so badly that he couldn't even focus on his task. He could have killed them very easily, but he wasn't able to. It was so intense it almost seemed to shake him, making him incapable in doing anything properly. Naruto thought back to his training. His master said that playing is when Naruto kills his prey differently than the way he normally does, ripping them to shreds in a quick and gruesome manner. There were 3 ways to play with his prey. One way was to chase them and make them scared, then attacking them whenever they stopped to rest. The second was to kill them very slowly and painfully. He would know he was doing a good job from his prey's screaming. The third way was a combination of the first 2. Master called them friends. Naruto trembled. Friends are bad. Bad. Naruto only realized how long he stood there when he saw the sun rising. He had stopped playing with his prey during the afternoon and had waited over 12 hours. He had to finish playing with his prey. He had to listen to his master. He had to be a good boy. He didn't want his master to scold him. He didn't want to go back to the bad place. He didn't want to be punished. He followed the trail of blood until he reached a river and was forced to try and track them by scent, which wasn't so easy since they had completely submerged themselves underwater. Naruto knew he couldn't afford to go back without killing them, so he started walking over the water in the direction they were originally headed. His master wouldn't want him to come back until his orders were completed, and time was never a factor to him. Naruto's sensitive ears picked up voices and he followed them instantly. Once at the river bank, Naruto silently jumped into the trees and hid. His prey were in clear view and he waited for the right time to attack. He was close enough to hear what they were saying. "There, that should be good enough until we get to the village, then we'll have Sis fix you up." Kiba looked at his dog. "How's that feel, Akamaru?" Akamaru barked. "Good thing we found these herbs, huh?" Another bark. Sasuke was walking around looking in different directions, scanning for any signs of movement, any signs of their pursuer. Naruto watched as he came closer to his hiding spot. Sasuke's head was slightly tiled down, so he couldn't see his face. He suddenly stopped in front of the tree Naruto was in and stood there. Sasuke snapped his head up and the two made direct eye contact. Naruto saw his Sharingan and froze. Sasuke watched as Naruto's eyes widened in fear and then closing tightly shut. Naruto clutched his head. Things started rushing into his mind. Chidori. Rasengan. He's my friend. If I don't stop him now, then I absolutely forbid you to go after him until then. I'm not about to let my friend die. No matter what you say, I will bring Sasuke back home. Would a friend try and kill you? Not going to get away from us this time, brat. You are about to experience the power of the Mangenkyu firsthand. The voices stopped abruptly and Naruto slowly opened his eyes, but instead of being in his original surroundings, he found himself inside a strange place. The hallway he was in was dark and partly flooded up to ankle height. Water dripped from pipes hanging along the ceiling. Naruto had the strange impression that he had been there once before. A loud growl erupted from deep inside the maze of tunnels, shaking the floor and causing ripples of water to slash against the walls. Naruto suddenly felt himself being sucked through the hallways at a speed even he couldn't match. He veered around corners, until huge metal gates came into view. There was a limp figure hanging from chains in front of the large cage, with big red eyes looming behind it. Naruto, still racing forward against his will, got closer to the figure. The form lifted his head, revealing blue eyes underneath golden locks of hair. Naruto came so close that all he could see was the depths of those eyes, until he moved closer. Naruto felt himself being fused together with the body in front of him. A jolt of pain ran through the awoken blonde. The figure howled in pain and started tugging violently at the chains bounding him. Voices of his past started washing over him like a tsunami, causing him to pull harder on his restraints. Torture him. Bring out the demon in him, he won't fall. Break his hope and determination with all the power you have. Bring the nine tails out, we'll use Itachi's powers. Crush his spirit. We'll make him obedient, block out all his feeling. Take away all of his memories, turn him into the monster that he is. Naruto screamed in frustration and put all the strength he could on his last pull. He finally felt the chains break and give way. He started to fall. Sasuke, Kiba and Akamaru watched in amazement as Naruto screamed. That was the first time they heard his voice in 3 long years. Naruto's body went limp and started to fall from the branch he was on. Sasuke ran forward and caught Naruto before he hit the ground. He looked at him and was horrified to see that his skin was starting to melt. Naruto's body was literally on fire. Sasuke let go of him in his reflex of shock. The ninjas watched in mute terror as Naruto's fightingly pale skin burned into soot-reveling tan skin. Naruto's red hair also blackened into ash, leaving golden hair behind. The fire on Naruto's body grew dimmer and went out. Kiba and Sasuke exchanged glances, and Sasuke approached the lifeless blonde. He knelt down and reached his hand out to dust away the rest of the cinders covering Naruto's body. Sasuke put his fingers over his neck and checked for a pulse, feeling his own blood racing in dread at that fact that Naruto might be dead. A small smile appeared on the Uchiha's face, out of the view from Kiba and Akamaru. He looked up in his normal expression, less mask. He's alive. Will we get in trouble for bringing him back? It's not part of the mission, and he looks normal, but he might still be dangerous. But I guess we don't really have a choice, do we? Kiba grinned. Akamaru barked. Sasuke looked back at Naruto's flaccid face. Naruto. He whispered so quietly even Akamaru couldn't hear. He carefully picked him up. I love you. Lord Hokage, Naruto's back. The messenger watched with a worried expression, as Tsunade choked on her drink. Perhaps he shouldn't have barged in and yelled like that. Tsunade pounded her chest to cease her coughing. I think I heard that wrong. She looked up and addressed the young man. What did you say? She said in a hoarse voice. I said that Naruto is back. Tsunade got to her feet and approached the ninja. Her expression was unreadable. Where is he? He is in the hospital, my lord. That was all he needed to say and Tsunade was gone. Where's Naruto? The shocked patients and nurses gawked at their Hokage, who had barged through the hospital doors, knocking them clear off their hinges. She walked up to the nearest nurse and repeated her question, a little quieter this time. The nurse, who still hadn't quite recovered from her shock, tried to answer her. He's in RO room 176, L Lord Hokage. Thank you. Tsunade ran up the stairs to the second floor and went down the hallway to room 176. She stood before the door and took a deep breath, attempting to calm herself, and slid the door open. She walked inside and frantically scanned the room. On the right side of the room, Hana and Kiba were treating Akamaru. To the left, Sakura was tending to Shikamaru, and in the far left, Shizune could be seen talking to Sasuke, who was looking at the patient on the bed. The Hokage headed towards her attendant. Shizune. Oh, Tsunade-sama. You're here to see Naruto, right? How is he? He's not doing so well and there's nothing we can do for him. Tsunade reached the bed and looked over at Naruto. Naruto was squirming and turning around in his sleep, growling coming from deep in his throat. His blonde hair had lengthened slightly and he had grown a lot since she had last seen him, but he had also gotten more lean. Tsunade walked over to his side and felt his forehead, but drew her hand back the second it touched him. He was burning up. She had never known anyone who could grow this feverish. Naruto tossed his head from side to side. His pillow had become damp from the layer of sweat dripping off his skin. The door to the room opened and a ninja ran towards them. Once he got close enough, he bent down and rested his hands on his knees, trying to catch his breath. Naruto. Is Naruto all right? Iruka. The shinobi teacher looked over on the bed and rushed to Naruto's side. What's wrong with him? Is he going to be okay? What happened? Iruka, calm down. Tsunade demanded in a stern voice. Gomen. Shizune, will you, please, tell me the report on Naruto's condition? Yes, of course. Shizune looked down at the documents she was holding and read them out loud. From what the medical team could find out, the Akatsuki had somehow altered Naruto's body, making it impossible to sense his chakra. They had even asked Neji Hyuga to use his Byakugan, but he couldn't see his chakra either. His injuries can heal themselves far faster than before. And also due to the altering being done on him, it's not possible to determine what's wrong with his body with our chakra. So we would have to figure it out by surgery. But because his healing has increased, that wouldn't be possible either. She looked up from the report, waiting for Tsunade's reaction. So, the only thing we know is that his body's been altered, and we know nothing about his health. Well, there is one other thing. Everyone looked at Shizune expectantly. There are very strange markings imprinted on Naruto's skin. Some of them look as though they are part of various jutsus. And the seal the Yondaime put on Naruto is now a permanent scar on his body. The only scar. The room was silent, aside from Naruto's constant growling. Will he get better? Iruka looked at Naruto with a very concerned look on his face. Relax, Iruka. I'm certain he will be fine. Tsunade also turned to look at Naruto. We'll know for sure from his condition tomorrow. You'd better go home now, it's getting late. Hi. With that said, Iruka took another look at Naruto and left the room. Tsunade? Are you really so sure that he will be okay? The Akatsuki wouldn't want him to die so easily. They did a lot more to him than we know, that I'm sure of. The fifth Hokage turned to Sasuke. Why don't you go home as well? Sasuke shook his head. I will watch Naruto. I will watch him until he returns to normal. Tsunade-sama. Sakura spoke Tsunade, not even glancing at Naruto. Shikamaru's condition was very bad, but he will make a full recovery in 6 weeks. Thank you, Sakura. The sun set in the horizon and everyone left the room, until there was only Shikamaru, Sasuke and Naruto. When Sasuke was sure that no one else was around to watch or listen to them, he moved closer to Naruto and knelt down at his side. Naruto's restless movements and growls had quieted down a bit. Sasuke reached out his hand and swept some hair off of his flawless face. Naruto. Sasuke smiled warmly at him, but it was soon replaced by a frown. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He furrowed his brow. Damn those Akatsuki. Sasuke continued to play with Naruto's locks of golden hair. Sasuke stood up and leaned closer to Naruto's face and planted a small kiss on his cheek. Please, get better soon. Naruto's body hung limply in the chains bounded to his wrists and ankles. Blood snaked its way down Naruto's face, but even more was oozing out of the deep gouges scattered across his skin. The blood fell into a deep puddle just below him. He couldn't feel any more pain, and knew his body was close to death, as it had been many times before. Naruto wasn't going to give up, though. He wasn't going to let them win. He lifted his head to the sounds of voices behind the door to his prison. I think we should torture him more, but I'm not sure how much more he can take before he dies. The leader said we had to bring out the demon in him at any costs. But he won't fall. The stubborn brat. You have to break his hope and determination with all the power you have. The leader gave us orders to bring the Nine Tails out. It seems that physical torture has little effect on him, but what about mental torture? We'll use Itachi's powers to really get to him. We can crush his spirit in no time at all. He refuses to listen. Well, now we'll make him obedient. We should also block out all his feelings, and take away all of his memories. We'll turn him into the monster that he is. Naruto watched in horror as he saw the door open, and began to shake uncontrollably when he saw Itachi walk into the cell, closing the door behind him. As he got closer, Naruto looked away, but felt his face being forced back up with cold hands. Naruto stared transfixed at the Sharingan eyes. Damn, you! Naruto howled in anger at his tormentors, who merely smiled and continued with their work. The two of them lifted their weapons and advanced towards their prisoner. Naruto tugged at his chains, but was unable to pull loose. He suddenly felt a searing pain throughout his body, as weapons ripped his skin and tore open gashes. Naruto bit his lip to try and keep from crying out in pain. He could feel the blood running down his chin from his self-inflicted wound. Stupid bastards, I'm not going to let you win. Torture me all you want, it's not going to work on me. The two tormentors were outside of Naruto's cell. They had their hands over their ears to block out Naruto's loud ranting. They looked at each other in amazement. After all the torture he had went through, he still had enough energy to yell the way he did. Well, it appears you didn't do a very good job, did you? The two looked up at the speaker, who had walked down the hallway with his partner and stood before them. Please, Kisame, sir, if we did anything more than we have, he would have died. It's true. I don't understand why he hasn't broke yet. I didn't expect him to. Kisame looked over at Itachi. Why's that? All the other prisoners fell to pieces when they were tortured on the first day, and it's already been that brat's 5th day here. Simply put, he's demonic. Naruto yanked harder at his restraints. His attempts to escape had left the skin on his wrists raw and bloody. He yelled in frustration as he pulled harder on the chains, painfully ripping his skin. Pain shot through his nerves and he went limp, unable to move anymore. He took a deep breath and yelled as loud as he could. His voice cracked and an animal-like roar could be heard from all around the hideout of the Akatsuki. Get more men to assist in taming him. Itachi was looking at the door to Naruto's prison. Be creative. Hi. Months passed. During that time Naruto was brutally tortured, but he refused to give up. If I let them win, then who knows what they'll do. No. I know what they'll do. They'll get that stupid fox out, and destroy everything. I won't let that happen. Naruto had seen death several times, he now grew a tolerance for it. He became fightingly calm with anything to do with death. Itachi-san, I am here to report Naruto's progress. The man took Itachi's silence as a sign to continue. He still hasn't been broken yet. His body and mind has started to change and develop, making torture a lot harder. Explain. The man was a bit caught off guard, but soon recovered and did as he was told. His skin harvest system seems to have dulled quite a bit, making him feel less pain, and the speed of his healing has gotten faster. No matter how much he has suffered, or how severe the injuries, he will be completely healed by the following day. In some cases even sooner. He also quite reacting to his death experiences, when before it used to cause him to go into a state of shock. Continue. We believe that even though he is not falling, the torturing is leaving a deep scar on him emotionally and mentally, but his willpower is very strong. Nothing we do to him seems to affect him very much. Itachi-san. May we ask for your assistance? Itachi decided to assist in breaking Naruto. The leader had said that if he succeeded, Naruto could be his pet. That was an opportunity he couldn't overlook, but first he had to break the wild animal and turn him into a tamed pet. He had to make sure that Naruto was completely submissive and would obey his orders no matter what, and that would take a great amount of time. Itachi walked into the cellar and saw Naruto flinch. He approached him and in return Naruto looked away, averting his eyes from his. Itachi forced Naruto to look at him and activated his Mangenkyu. Naruto looked around his new surroundings and saw his friends, Sasuke, Sakura, everyone. Naruto became overjoyed. He waved to them. They glared back at him. They turned their backs to him and started to walk away. Naruto was stunned. Wait, everyone, wait. They didn't stop or even look over their shoulder at him. Sasuke, Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, everyone, wait. Naruto tried to catch up to them, but found it impossible to move. He reached out his hand and called out to them in a futile attempt to make them come back. He felt tears running down his cheeks as his friends left him in the strange dark place. You see, Naruto? A voice whispered to him. They think nothing of you. If they had, they would have saved you by now. Like when you and them tried to bring Sasuke back. Naruto thought about what he was hearing. No. You're wrong. They hated you from the very beginning. Ever since you were born. You are unwanted. Useless. Shut up. Do you think you can change their minds? Even if you became Hokage, everyone would still hate you, fear you. No. They're my friends. They're keeping their enemies close, Naruto. They have betrayed you. They would have eventually killed you. No. You can't trust them, because they do not trust you. They would never trust a demon. I'm not a demon, oh, but you are Naruto. Have you not felt like one whenever you use his powers? Do you not dream of times when he has killed so many? It's because the two of you are two souls in one body. You both exist in one being. No. Do you know who did this to you? It was your very own father. What? Yes. He did this to you, to protect his village and died for it. Naruto, you killed him. No, but that doesn't matter. You know why, Naruto? It's because he never loved you. He didn't care for you or what would happen to you. He used you. No, and now, you are becoming a demon. No. Itachi walked out of the cell. Naruto could be seen hanging unconscious, behind him. Itachi, do you really think that messing with his head is going to break him? Yes, Kisame. If I do that to him enough, then he'll begin to believe it himself. After that, we can make whatever adjustments on him that we want. No. Naruto woke up in a cold sweat, sitting up in a bed. He looked around himself, and saw many strange people staring back at him. One had brown hair tied back in a ponytail, and had a scar across his face just above his nose. The man approached him. Naruto. You're up, thank goodness. No, stay back, stay away from me. Naruto held up his sheets as if to shield himself. Naruto. He watched as a woman put her hand on the man's shoulder. Iruka, you should get back to your class. Lunch is almost over. But, Lord Hokage. I'll take care of Naruto. Hi. The man took one last look at Naruto and turned to leave. Naruto. The women addressed him. It's okay, we're your friends. Friends? Naruto's eyes widened in obvious fear. No, please, don't hurt me. Naruto cowered behind his sheets, tears rolling down his eyes. Naruto, calm down, we won't hurt you. The blonde-haired women walked over to his side. But Master said. Naruto sniffed. He said that my friends will always hurt me. I promise you, we won't. Naruto's visitors were asked to leave by Tsunade. As they walked away, Sasuke caught what they were saying. Is that really Naruto? Hinata looked back with a worried expression. Of course. Kiba refrained from saying it, he is. He still couldn't shake off the fear he had when Naruto hunted them down and tried to kill them. He was like an animal. I wonder what happened to him to make him act this way. Ino spoke with both concern and curiosity. I'll sneak in some of Ichiraku's ramen for him. Shoji started to devise his plan. I bet that'll make him feel better. Sasuke watched them walk out the door, but soon he turned his attention back to his Naruto. In his mind he was doing backflips. He was really glad to see Naruto up even though he seemed to have no memory of them, but the way he acted when Tsunade told him they were his friends was very unnerving. Akatsuki. Naruto, please, just calm down. But Naruto inched away from Tsunade. I'm not going to hurt you. She reached out her hand, but before she even touched him, Naruto cringed. Tsunade let out a deep sigh, and got up. She looked over at Shizune and motioned her out of the room. Sasuke tried to conceal his smirk. Shikamaru had left that morning, so it would only be Naruto and him, alone in the room. Oh. Sasuke? Tsunade turned around to face him. Can you come too? Damn. Sasuke pushed himself of the wall he was leaning on. She's got to have some mind-reading powers, or something. He looked at Naruto as he was leaving. The way Naruto watched him with those teary eyes, made Sasuke want to jump him. Damn, he's hot. He reached the door and walked out with Tsunade and Shizune. Well, he's awake now, that's a good sign. Tsunade looked thoughtful. But the time he spent with the Akatsuki has really affected him. I'm not sure what we should do. I don't think there's anything we can do. Shizune looked down, her voice drowned in grief. Yo. Everyone looked down the hallway at the source of the voice. Kakashi. I heard Naruto finally woke up, so I came to see how he's doing. Not as well as we'd like. Shizune looked over at Tsunade. You should get back to work. I'll see if I can find something in our research to help Naruto. I should look around too. Tsunade started to walk away. Tsunade-sama. You have to do your work first. Shizune ran after the Hokage. Hey, did you hear me? Kakashi. Tsunade turned to him. I should forewarn you. Be careful around Naruto. It would be a good idea not to do anything he wouldn't expect. Hi. Kakashi entered the room and headed to the bed he knew Naruto was occupying. When he got into view of him, Naruto flinched and started to tremble. Kakashi watched in amazement as his former student attempted to back away from him as far as he could, pressing his back against the wall. Naruto. A.R. You a friend? Kakashi was stunned, to say the least. He hadn't expected him to say that. It was plain to see that he thought friends were something dangerous. This must be the work of the Akatsuki. Better start avoiding that word in front of him for the time being. At least until he knows that friend's okay. Nope. Kakashi smiled underneath his mask. I'm your sensei. Sensei. That's right. Kakashi pointed at Sasuke. And he's your old teammate and your temporary bodyguard. Really? Really? Naruto started to relax and gave a small smile. Sasuke couldn't help but be impressed by Kakashi's actions. He also couldn't stop loving the way Naruto had smiled. Kawaii. Sasuke observed the scene before to tell Naruto about some people, relating them with a different word than friend. When he got to Tsunade, Naruto looked confused. She told me that all of them were my friends. Kakashi was at a loss for words as he tried to think of an explanation. She meant, we weren't going to hurt you. Sasuke hoped he had made the right excuse. Oh. Kakashi walked slowly to Naruto's side, seeing no negative reaction from him. He leaned against the wall. He looked down and smiled fondly at him. Naruto smiled back. Kakashi had a mixture of feelings from Naruto's behavior. He was happy, but a little scared at how well and quickly he could adapt simply from what was being said to him. Naruto. Do you know where you are? Naruto shook his head. Well, how about this? Do you know anything about your past? After searching through his mind, Naruto looked up at his sensei and shook his head again. Would you like me to tell you? Naruto considered the idea, and nodded hesitantly. Kakashi started to talk about the day he first became his sensei. He spoke of entering the classroom, to meet his 3 students for the first time, when an eraser landed on his head as he opened the door. Naruto snickered. The sound surprised and pleased to other 2 ninjas. Kakashi said that the prank had been pulled from none other than him. Naruto smiled. This time his smile looked more like the ones he always used to have. Not one of his famous foxy grins, but still a smile Naruto had made before. Well, that's enough for now. Kakashi started to stretch and Naruto started to pout and whine. But, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi smiled, very happy to hear something Naruto would always use to say to him. I have to go do my training, but if I have time I guess I can tell you more tomorrow. Yeah. Kakashi waved over his shoulder as he walked to the door. He glanced at Sasuke, signaling that he wanted to talk to him. God damn it. At this rate I'll get no time alone with Naruto. None. Once out of Naruto's hearing range, Kakashi turned to face Sasuke. Sasuke. I hope you're not going to do anything that's too much for Naruto to handle. I wonder who else can tell what I am thinking. He's still getting used to everything. We can't rush anything. Maybe if I play dumb. I have no idea what it is you're talking about. Sasuke tried to sound convincing. I thought so. He's starting to talk and act more like the way he used to before he left. It has to be because Naruto's back. I'm talking about showing or telling him too much about his past. Kakashi smiled. You were only thinking that I was hinting at something else, because of your train of thought. Sasuke glared at him. And now we're seeing some expressions. Kakashi turned and started to walk away. Try not to snap, Sasuke. Bye. Arg. Quick. Need something to throw at him. Sasuke looked at a pile of cleaning supplies set outside a closet next to him and an evil smile appeared on his face. Kakashi suddenly found himself drenched with soapy water and a pail over his head. Didn't expect that. Sasuke headed back to Naruto's room. As much as he wanted to run there, he knew he had to keep his Uchiha dignity. He finally entered the room and got in sight of Naruto when the door opened. Hey, Naruto. How about some Ichiraku's ramen? Naruto stared blankly at the food that was put out on a tray in front of him. He turned his gaze back at the ninja that had given it to him. So, this is called ramen. Choji gawked at Naruto's reaction. I'm sorry, but I don't really feel like eating. Naruto set the tray aside. Choji walked over to Sasuke and whispered to him. Is Naruto okay? He's definitely not acting like himself. I thought ramen would help, but he doesn't even recognize it and on top of that he's not hungry. What happened to him? Sasuke simply shrugged his shoulders. The other ninja looked back at Naruto, who was snuggling back under his covers. He said goodbye and walked away, looking at Naruto as if he was a complete stranger. Sasuke watched him leave. Finally, he looked back at his beloved Naruto, but was disappointed to see he had already fallen fast asleep. Why? Sasuke gazed up at the ceiling as if hoping for an answer. He felt like banging his head on the wall. Sasuke inched closer to Naruto, while still leaning against the wall. When he was beside him he pushed himself off, only to kneel down next to the bed. He reached his hand out and started to play with Naruto's hair as he had done before, when Naruto was asleep. He was also concerned with Naruto's reaction toward his favorite food. He'll turn back to normal soon enough. I hope. He leaned closer and gently kissed Naruto's forehead. Oyasumi nasai. Naruto sat in the corner of his cell. He was no longer physically tortured, so they took off the chains binding him to the wall. Instead he was given a metal collar that was chained to the floor. The chain was long enough to allow him to walk around the empty cell, but he remained in the corner. The collar itself had a seal on it, so that if he ever needed a little punishment a powerful electric current would emanate from it. The very little supply of food that was given to him was decreasing by the day, and the water he was given had already been taken away from him for a while now. Sometimes Naruto would start to wonder how he would die, by hunger, thirst, deprivation of sleep, the torture, insanity. But he was always reminded of the fact that the Akatsuki still wanted him alive. Naruto being kept in the dark dungeon away from any light was causing his skin to pale, much like a teammate of his. He hardly slept, causing him to grow black-rimmed eyes, similar to a sand ninja he knew. He couldn't seem to remember those people's names, though. As much as he tried, nothing came to him. Itachi would visit him daily, at any time, making Naruto dread constantly. He had already visited him, and Naruto was left with a blank mind. Naruto noticed that once in a while his memories would disappear from his mind and never come back. He couldn't understand why though, and it seemed to happen whenever Itachi visited him. Naruto shuddered. Day by day, he was losing it. The door to his cell door opened and Naruto froze. He slowly looked at the ninja with fear clouding his eyes. Itachi stood at the doorway and looked down at him. He was scared. Terrified. Was Itachi going to start visiting him more often? You can calm down, Naruto. I'm only here to give you your food. Itachi walked closer to Naruto and dropped something at his feet. Naruto looked down and was horrified to see a dead man. He looked back up at Itachi with pleading eyes, praying that he wasn't going to say what he thought he was. But Naruto was in a living hell and knew that such a thing would be impossible. From now on, Naruto, you will eat nothing but human flesh. We will give you nothing else. Naruto slowly looked back at the dead man. He felt sick. Itachi turned and walked out of the cell, leaving Naruto alone with his new food. Kisame was there, waiting for him on the other side. Kisame looked at his partner. Are you sure he's actually going to eat that? Yes, eventually. Kisame wasn't convinced. He's developing according to plan. He will turn into the animal he was meant to be. Naruto continued to stare at the new food that was introduced to him. The man had an expression of utter fear etched across his face. Naruto knew perfectly well how the man was feeling before he died. His stomach was empty and his mouth was parched. He swallowed. If I don't eat him I might get punished, but I don't want to be a cannibal. I'm so hungry, though. It's not right to eat the same species as me. But that is what some animals do. No, I'm not an animal. Itachi had tampered with Naruto's mind long enough for it to leave an effect on him, to make Naruto think the way Itachi wants him to. It was something Naruto had to fight with constantly, to keep himself from being broken. He knew that adding to the other thoughts, they would take over him and control his own thoughts. He was developing a split personality, and was losing to it. Naruto started to shiver. He got to his feet uneasily and hurried to the far side of his cell. His chains followed his movements and made metallic sounds as they went. He fell to the ground at the opposite corner and watched the corpse warily, as if it would come back to life and eat him instead. 3 days. 3 days and Naruto hasn't touched his food. Itachi sat in his room thinking about what he should do about his soon-to-be pet. Perhaps I should show him that he's an animal, before I tame him. Naruto raised his head to look at the 2 men that had entered his cell. One walked over to the middle of the room and unfastened the chain from the hook. He stood up and tugged at the chain, sending Naruto to fall forward on his face. The 2 men laughed. Naruto got to his hands and knees, looking at the men in confusion. "Do you want to go and play?" one of the men asked in a mocking manner. Naruto was led into what appeared to be a large pen, with thick walls bordering the area. The doors he was brought through closed, leaving him alone. Everything was really dark, making it hard to see anything. Naruto looked around, unsure of what it was he should be doing. A low growling sound seemed to be coming from all different directions. The growling grew louder. Naruto could see numerous pairs of glowing eyes approaching him through the darkness. He was too stunned to move, too petrified to do anything, except watch the animals advance on their prey. White fangs flashed and crimson fluid splattered to the ground. Naruto fell in a small pool of his own blood. He came to his senses, but was unable to move his frail body. He had spent too much time simply sitting in his cell. His body wasn't prepared nor fit to have the ability to escape his fate. "This is a little game just for you, Naruto." Naruto's eyes suddenly snapped open. A blood-red color washed over his blue iris. His pupils contracted into slits. Naruto's hands flexed. His nails lengthened into claws. He quickly glanced around his surroundings. A white room bathed in the rising sun. 3 people stood in front of his bed, their backs turned to him, quietly talking to each other. A smile stretched across his face, revealing deadly sharp fangs. Well, my prey seem oblivious to their situation. Naruto slowly and silently rose, saliva dripping down his teeth, as he stalked closer to his unsuspecting quarries. He licked his lips, already tasting the warm flesh. A male with black hair looked over his shoulder, his eyes widened at the sight of his companion edging closer to him with deadly purpose. The 2 of them froze and stared. Sasuke knew instinctively that if he made any movement Naruto would lunge. Tsunade and Shizune looked at Sasuke and followed his gaze. Naruto leapt, claws lashing out. The 3 ninjas jumped out of the way, just avoiding the attack. Naruto landed where they were once standing, a low growl emanating from deep inside his throat. He turned to the left and faced Shizune. "Naruto." Naruto let out another growl as he turned to glare at the one that called out to him. Sasuke stepped closer to him and activated his Sharingan. Naruto stiffened. Sasuke watched as Naruto began to shake, his eyes dilating in fear. Naruto's claws retracted back into nails and he fell to the floor, covering his head, and started to whimper. Tsunade, Shizune and Sasuke exchanged confused and worried glances, until Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan and knelt down beside Naruto. "Naruto?" The blonde boy looked up at Sasuke with blue, tear-stained eyes. "I'm sorry. I won't be bad, please. Don't let Master hurt me. I don't want to go to the bad place again." "What bad place?" Tsunade questioned. Master takes me there when I have been bad," Naruto sobbed. "He makes me look in his eyes, and when they change I'm taken to the bad place. It's dark and I'm always alone." Naruto started to shake violently. And there's a voice. It tells me scary things and it gets inside my head. Sasuke, Tsunade and Shizune looked at each other at a loss for words. Sasuke looked down at Naruto, the one he loved so much, suffering. Naruto. Sasuke put his hand on his shoulder to get his attention. You're very far away from your master. Sasuke felt like he was going to throw up, from referring to Itachi as Naruto's master. He's not here, so he can't hurt you, and we'll all make sure that he never does again. Naruto threw himself into Sasuke's arms and buried his face into his chest, willing himself to stop crying and relax. Sasuke tried to focus on something to stop his head from spinning in pure bliss, while inner Sasuke waved a black flag bearing the Uchiha crest in victory. Tsunade leaned over to Shizune and whispered, "That's the longest response Sasuke has ever made since he first came back from Orochimaru." Once Naruto and Sasuke had recovered, Naruto went back into his bed and Sasuke went to stand right next to it, leaving the Hokage and her assistant to finish what they were discussing about before Naruto had attacked them. Even after what you seen Naruto just do, you still want to carry through with your plan? Yes. Tsunade looked over at her patient. It's the best thing to do for him. No medicine or jutsu will work on him, and besides nothing we have would even help him. What we need to do is gradually return Naruto back to his old self. Okay, I understand, but... Shizune gave Tsunade a questioning look. Why does Naruto have to stay at Sasuke's house? Wouldn't it be better if he stayed at his own place? Not only that, but Itachi once lived there? First of all, Naruto has never been to Sasuke's place that we know of, so he has no memories linked there. If he went to his own house, then too many memories might return and be too much for him to handle. Second of all, I don't think Itachi actually had conversations with about where he lived. It's also a pretty big place, unlike here or Naruto's place, so visitors can stop by without it be too uncomfortable. Shizune nodded her head after hearing the logic behind it all. Tsunade smiled. It'll make Sasuke happy too. Huh? Looked up after Tsunade told him the news. I'm going to be staying at Sasuke's house? Sasuke's face remained emotionless, while inner Sasuke and two shadow clones on either side of him did the Kankan victory dance. Only temporarily. Tsunade's words sent 3 lethal kunais at inner Sasuke and his shadow clones, leaving him alone and bleeding in a puddle of self-sorrow. However, in a matter of seconds inner Sasuke recovered, laughed evilly. We'll just see about that. Sasuke briefly wondered if Orochimaru had affected his inner personality in any ways during his time with him. Yo! Kakashi casually waved as he approached them. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto's whole face light up. What are you going to tell me about today? Well, Kakashi caught Tsunade's glance as she walked by and knew she wanted to speak with him. Sorry, but it looks like I still have more work to do. What? Naruto looked down at his sheets, crestfallen. Sasuke's eyes widened to an inhuman size at the sight before him. Naruto's watery eyes almost covered with his golden locks of hair, an adorable pout on his face. His mind immediately darted to the near future and pictured a similar expression on his beloved shinobi's face, when the two of them are together in his bed. Sasuke teasing him with every heated breath exhaled on the tender skin of his inner thigh, just before he licked Naruto's. Sasuke suddenly turned to face the wall, doing everything he could to stop his massive nosebleed before anyone noticed. Kakashi. Do you have any ideas? We need to get Naruto to eat something. Kakashi? The silver-haired man looked away from Sasuke's back and tried to ignore his curiosity as to why Sasuke had found the wall behind himself to be so interesting. What? What are we going to do? Tsunade's voice was edged with annoyance. Since he got here. Her face started to show signs of concern as she looked over at the boy that had turned her life around for the better, the boy that resembled her younger brother in more ways than his appearance. I'm sure he'll start eating when he's finally adjusted. Kakashi spoke with a reassuring smile under his mask. He'll come around and start eating his ramen like there's no tomorrow before we know it. And then our wallets will wish he hadn't. Kakashi mentally added. Right. Tsunade smiled, grateful for Kakashi's words of confidence. That's right. Tsunade thought. Naruto will be fine. Everything will go back to normal soon. Maybe even better than the way it was before. But despite everything, there was still some doubt etched in her head. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.